I realized I'd trained myself to be helpless. Emily's journal at 23. Hey, it's Emily. And I need to tell you about the day I realized I was living in a cage with the door wide open. I was 24 years old, standing in my apartment, phone in hand, about to call my ex-boyfriend to ask permission to cut my hair. Let me say that again. I was about to ask a man I'd broken up with 6 months earlier for permission to do something to my own body. That's when it hit me. I wasn't trapped. I trained myself to be helpless. This is the story of how I discovered I'd built an invisible prison out of my own learned behaviors, and how dismantling it, piece by piece, gave me back the life I thought I'd lost forever. I didn't wake up one day and decide to be helpless. It happened slowly. So slowly I didn't even notice I was disappearing. It started in high school with my mom. She wasn't abusive, not in the traditional sense. She was just controlling, and she framed it as love. Let me pick out your outfit. You have such unique taste, honey, but I know what looks professional. Don't apply to that college, it's too far away. You'll be homesick. Trust me, I know what's best. Break up with that boy, he's not good for you. Mother's intuition. Every decision, big or small, went through her first. And when I tried to push back, she'd get upset, cry, tell me I was being ungrateful, that she'd sacrificed everything for me and this was how I repaid her. So I stopped pushing back. I learned that it was easier to just let her decide, let her control, let her live my life while I watched from the passenger seat. Then I met Kyle. I was 21, just out of college, and he seemed perfect, confident, decisive. He knew what he wanted. Looking back now, I can see he was exactly like my mom. But at the time, it felt comfortable, familiar. Kyle had opinions about everything. What I should wear, who I should hang out with, what job I should take, how I should spend my free time. You don't really want to go to that party, do you? Those people are fake. That dress is a little revealing. You don't want to give guys the wrong idea. Marketing, really? You'd be better in HR. You're a people person. And just like with my mom, I stopped fighting. Because every time I expressed what I wanted, it turned into an argument. He'd get angry, tell me I was being selfish, irrational. Didn't I see he was just trying to help me? After a while, I stopped knowing what I wanted at all. I'd stand in front of my closet for 20 minutes, paralyzed, because I didn't know what Kyle would approve of. What if I chose wrong? I'd get invited to events and immediately text him to ask if I should go. Not because I wanted his opinion, because I genuinely didn't know if I wanted to go. I'd lost the ability to access my own preferences. I'd look at job postings and feel nothing. No excitement, no interest. Just this blank emptiness where my ambitions used to be. My friends noticed, started pulling away, said I'd changed, that I never made decisions anymore, that hanging out with me was frustrating because I'd just say, I don't know, or whatever you want, to every suggestion. I lost myself so completely that when Kyle and I finally broke up, when he left me for someone else, I didn't even feel relieved. I felt terrified. Because without him telling me what to do, I had no idea how to exist. The 6 months after the breakup were the worst of my life. Not because I missed Kyle, but because I had no idea who I was without someone controlling me. I'd stand in the grocery store, staring at pasta sauce, unable to decide which one to buy, because I didn't know which one I liked. I'd been buying whatever Kyle preferred for so long. I'd forgotten my own taste. I'd get invitations to hang out and panic. What if I said yes and regretted it? What if I said no and missed out? I couldn't make the decision, so I just stopped responding, stopped going out entirely. At work, I'd have ideas, but never share them. Because what if they were stupid? What if people laughed at me? Better to stay silent, safe, invisible. I started researching online. Why can't I make decisions? How to know what you want? Feeling paralyzed by choices. That's when I found an article about learned helplessness. It was based on these experiments from the 1960s. Scientists put dogs in a cage and gave them small electric shocks. At first, the dogs tried to escape, but the cage was locked. After enough failed attempts, the dogs just gave up, stopped trying. Here's the part that made my blood run cold. Later, the scientists opened the cage door, but the dogs didn't leave. They'd learned that effort was pointless, that trying didn't matter. So they stayed in the cage even when they were free to go. I was those dogs. I'd spent so many years having my choices overridden, my preferences dismissed, my efforts to assert myself shut down, that I'd learned it was useless to try. Even now, when Kyle was gone and I was free, I was still acting like the cage was locked. I trained myself to be helpless. The article talked about 3 patterns that keep you trapped. Permanence, believing that setbacks are forever, that if something didn't work before, it never will. I tried to make my own choices with my mom, and it ended in guilt and manipulation. I tried with Kyle, and it ended in fights. So I'd learned. Asserting myself equals pain. Therefore, never assert myself again. Pervasiveness, letting one failure define everything. I couldn't make my mom respect my decisions, so I decided I was just bad at making decisions. Period. Not, this specific relationship is unhealthy. But I am fundamentally incapable. Personalization. Blaming myself for systemic problems. My mom was controlling because she had her own trauma. Kyle was controlling because he was insecure and needed to dominate someone to feel powerful. But I'd internalized it as, this happens because something is wrong with me. I sat there reading, crying, because I finally understood. I wasn't weak. I wasn't broken. I was responding logically to an environment that had punished independence. But here's the thing about logical responses. They can be unlearned. The next morning, I did something small, something that felt ridiculous but necessary. I went to a coffee shop and ordered a drink without Googling best drinks at Starbucks first, without texting anyone to ask what I should get, without defaulting to whatever's popular. I just ordered what sounded good to me in that moment. A caramel macchiato. Extra caramel. And when the barista handed it to me, I felt this tiny spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Pride in making a choice. A small, meaningless choice that didn't matter to anyone but me. I started doing it deliberately. Making micro decisions just to prove to myself I could. What to wear, not what would Kyle approve of or what would my mom pick. Just what I felt like wearing. What to eat for dinner, not what's healthy or what's easy. What I was actually craving. Whether to go out or stay in. Not based on obligation or fear of missing out. Based on what I genuinely wanted in that moment. It sounds so simple. But each decision felt like I was pushing against this massive weight. The weight of years of conditioning telling me my choices didn't matter. But the weight was getting lighter. My therapist, yes. I finally started seeing one, taught me something called evidence journaling. Every time I made a decision and it turned out okay, I wrote it down. Chose the Thai restaurant. Food was good. Didn't regret it. Went to the party, had fun, glad I went. Spoke up in the meeting. Boss liked my idea. Idea implemented. Over weeks, the journal filled up. Proof that my choices mattered. That my efforts produced results. That the cage I'd been living in was a lie. 3 months into actively fighting learned helplessness. Something shifted. I was at brunch with my mom. She did her usual routine. Honey, you should really order the salad. You've been eating so much bread lately. And for the first time in my life, I looked her in the eye and said, I'm going to order the French toast because that's what I want. She blinked. I'm just trying to help. I know, but I didn't ask for help. I'm 24. I can order my own food. She looked hurt, started to tear up. And I felt that old familiar guilt rising, the conditioning telling me to back down, apologize. order the salad. But I didn't. Mom, I love you, but I need you to let me make my own choices. Even if they're different from what you'd choose. Even if you think they're wrong, they're mine to make. That conversation changed our relationship forever. It was hard. She didn't understand at first. We had more difficult talks. But slowly, she started backing off. Started asking, "What do you want?" instead of telling me what to do. At work, I started speaking up, pitching ideas, volunteering for projects I was interested in instead of waiting to be assigned. I failed sometimes. I pitched an idea that got rejected, volunteered for a project that turned out to be a disaster. But I didn't interpret those failures the way I used to. Before, a failure meant, I'm incompetent, I should never try again. Now, a failure meant, that particular approach didn't work. What can I adjust? I started noticing the difference between actual external constraints and the echoes of learned helplessness. Actual constraint. I can't afford to quit my job without another one lined up. Learned helplessness. I could never get a better job. I'm lucky to have this one. Actual constraint. This relationship requires compromise. Learned helplessness. I have to do whatever my partner wants or they'll leave me. The difference was agency. Real constraints still left room for choices within the boundaries. How learned helplessness told me I had no choices at all. I started building what my therapist called micro-autonomy, small, non-negotiable decisions in low-stakes areas. I always ordered my coffee my way. Always. I chose one night a week that was non-negotiable me time, no matter what. I had one outfit that I wore only because I liked it, regardless of whether anyone else thought it was flattering. These tiny declarations of independence rewired something in my brain, proved that I could assert myself without the world ending. 6 months after the breakup, Kyle called, asked if we could get coffee. Just to talk. Oh, old Emily would have said yes immediately. Would have gone despite not wanting to. Would have sat there listening to him tell me how I should live my life and nodded along. New Emily said, I don't think that's a good idea. Come on, he said. 30 minutes. I just want to see how you're doing. Kyle, I appreciate you reaching out, but I'm doing well. And I don't think reconnecting serves either of us. You're being dramatic. It's just coffee. There it was, the old manipulation, dismissing my clearly stated boundary as dramatic. My decision is final. Take care of yourself. I hung up, and I didn't feel guilty, didn't second guess, didn't call back to apologize, because I'd reclaimed something Kyle and my mom had taken from me, the belief that my choices mattered, that I had the right to say no, that my boundaries were valid even if someone else disagreed with them. That phone call with Kyle trying to ask permission to cut my hair, I never made it. Because halfway through dialing, I realized how insane it was. Or I went to the salon, cut off 8 inches, dyed it a color I'd always wanted to try, but Kyle said would look cheap. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone I barely recognized. Not because my hair was different, but because the woman looking back at me was making her own choices, living her own life, existing outside of anyone else's approval. I started saying yes to things that scared me, applied for a new job, got it, 20% pay increase and actual room for advancement, started dating again. Not seriously, just casually seeing people and actually paying attention to whether I liked them, not whether they liked me. Reconnected with old friends, the ones who'd pulled away when I was with Kyle. They welcomed me back with open arms, and I started understanding what true personal agency felt like. Not the absence of constraints, but the presence of choice within them. If you're watching this, and you recognize yourself in my story, I need you to know something. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You're not fundamentally broken. You're living inside a psychological cage that you built from years of learning that your efforts don't matter. But here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. The door is open. It's always been open. You just have to be willing to walk through it. Start small. Make one decision today that's entirely yours. Order the food you want. Wear the outfit you like. Say no to something you don't want to do. It will feel uncomfortable, wrong even, because you're fighting years of conditioning. But every small choice is proof, evidence that you can make decisions, that your preferences matter, that you have agency. Keep track of those choices. Write them down. Build evidence that contradicts the helplessness narrative. And when you fail, because you will sometimes, don't let it become proof that trying is pointless. Let it be information, data, something to learn from and adjust. Learned helplessness is powerful, but it's not permanent. What's been learned can be unlearned. You're not a passenger in your own life. You're the architect, the driver, the author of your own story. And the first step to reclaiming that power is realizing you already have it. You just forgot how to use it. That's my journey. That's what I learned. And I'm still learning it every single day. Thanks for being here with me. If this hit home, subscribe to Emily's Journal at 23. Share your story in the comments. And remember, the cage is already open. You just have to choose to leave. I'll see you in the next entry.